I had just gotten out of a 2-year-long relationship living in the city I moved to with my then boyfriend for. After he left, I felt lonely and heartbroken. I was stuck in an apartment that we shared. I downloaded Tinder to chat with guys as a way of coping with the breakup. There, I matched with this guy. He was about 4 years older than me. He was extremely handsome and charming. He was very into fitness and had an amazing body. After talking for a few days, he asked me to meet, so we did. He came over to my house and I was immediately attracted to him. He was a bad boy, the kind I usually fall for, but he was also very sweet in the way that he talked to me. He kept complimenting me and doing sweet stuff to me. After a few days of meeting, we ended up having sex, and it honestly was the best sex I ever had. I felt this intense chemistry between us. We started hanging out and having sex a lot. We started hanging out and having lots of sex. At the time, I did smoke weed a lot, and he smoked too, and he did some other drugs as well. I didn't really care much at the time. Eventually, he would keep asking me to hang out pretty much every day, begging me to come over, and because he missed me. When I told him I was too tired, he would bribe me with stuff, like saying he would give me massages, weed, dinner, romantic things, give me the best night, etc. He didn't like when I told him no. He would sometimes get angry, send me a bunch of messages just pleading for me to come over. After every time I had been over to his house, he would shower me with love and via messages. He was so romantic, saying that I made him feel so amazing. There was something special about me and that he loved being with me. He would often shower me with compliments, but then get angry when I said I didn't have time to hang out with him. At some time, I was at his house. He got a call from someone. After he had hung up, he told me to go upstairs and to hide because his baby mama was coming over. He didn't want her to see me because she was quote-unquote crazy. He told me some stories of some crazy stuff she had apparently done. I believed him. He was very convincing. I believed this happened twice. Now, I know I should have seen the red flags. I probably did to some extent, but I didn't care too much. I kept hanging out with him a lot, even though I figured out he was heavy on drugs like coke and speed. One day, I was at his house and we had sex. I had smoked a lot and he was on coke and probably some other stuff. He wanted to have sex again, but he got frustrated that I couldn't get it up. Got mad and kind of blamed it on me not being firm enough on the grip. He kind of yelled at me to squeeze it harder, and he just kept getting more and more frustrated. I felt uncomfortable and wanted to leave, but he wanted me to stay. He tried to continue, but it didn't work. I was extremely uncomfortable and felt embarrassed. After a while, I told him I wanted to leave. He told me to give the weed back that he gave me, as in his mind, it was his payment to me being with me. I felt so pissed that I just grabbed my stuff and walked out of the door. He followed me. At first, he walked calmly about 30 meters behind me, begging me to stay with him, asking me where I was going. I kept walking and saying no. He then ran towards me. I picked up my phone to call a friend because I could tell he was getting aggressive. I turned around and saw him literally tear his shirt open and stomping towards me. He then grabbed my phone out of my hand, then kicked me in the stomach so hard I fell into a ditch. He then smashed my phone to the ground and then told me, "You're done." I thought he was gonna beat me up, but then it looked like he just actually tried to contain himself for a second and then turned around and left. I was mortified by what he had done. I just ran away shaking. I couldn't even remember how I got home, but somehow I did. I was able to borrow a phone from someone and called my friend. He came over. I had bruises all over my stomach and all over my legs and had no phone. I also called the police using a friend's phone and told him that I wanted to press charges. A few days later, he messaged me saying that I tried to steal from him, that I took advantage of him just to get some weed. A few hours later, he texted me saying sorry. A few more hours later, he texted me asking me what had happened to me yesterday. Then, a few weeks later, he found out that I reported him to the police. He was mad. He said he couldn't believe that I reported him. Then he told me he would give me 2 new phones, or whatever I wanted if I withdrew the report, and that he wouldn't contact me anymore if I did just that. He just didn't want any trouble and didn't want to lose his daughter. I didn't answer. Then he sent another message fabricating the whole story of what happened that night. He kept harassing me for weeks with messages. Some days he was begging us to get back together or be friends, bribing me. Other days he was accusing me of random stuff, calling me names, etc., and that he had a great lawyer, and that he would report me to the police for stuff that I've never actually done. He kept acting like a smartass, saying that he would beat me in court. It just became a huge big ball of chaos. After a few months, there was a trial. I couldn't attend physically, so I testified via phone call. I was questioned about our relationship and the incident that night. He lied and made up stories about me, but no one believed him. As the trial was done, I received all of the paperwork in mail. I was in shock when I read it. He had previously been charged with violence and rape towards his ex. Apparently, there was also an incident where he had forced his ex-girlfriend to touch herself while multiple other men watched and videotaped her. There were other girls too that had experienced similar things. Stuff like robbery, weapons, fights, violence, torture, you name it. He had been to jail multiple times. I had no idea that I'd been dealing with such a dangerous man. I'm pretty sure he's a psychopath. He has no understanding of what he has done. The sick part is, I recently came across a post about him on Facebook. Apparently, he's pretty popular with women lately on Snapchat and Instagram. He posts stuff about his life, whining about being beaten up by random men, being tortured, robbed, etc. That people follow him with guns. I've learned that the reason he keeps getting beaten up by people is because they know what he has done. He posted pictures of himself at the hospital to make people feel bad for him, and they do. He makes women feel sorry for him. He says people lie and make up stories about him, and he gains pity. He then posts all of the sweet replies and messages girls send him, saying stuff like he feels so grateful for all of the support. He is extremely good at manipulating people. I honestly feel so lucky that I got away at the time that I did, and that it didn't escalate any further. I checked his Facebook, and apparently he has a girlfriend now. I pray he doesn't hurt her in any way. I was just a sophomore in high school when I fell head over heels for the new quiet kid and thought he was my forever. Crazy, but I would actually go on marrying down the road just a week after graduation. High school sweethearts. Looking back now, I can see how many red flags I noticed, but I ignored because I was young and eagerly wanting to be grown up. Fast forward, the night before my wedding day, I was going over last-minute wedding details with my mom, who is easily one of the most caring and selfless people I know. So bless my sweet mom's heart when I asked her if she'd be mad if I decided I didn't want to go through with the wedding. Mind you, the wedding was the next day. But me being me, my mom thought I was messing around with her. I couldn't tell her the truth of what was going on now, so I took a deep breath and forced a believable chuckle. She genuinely thought I was pulling just another one of my jokes. I went on to finally tell her the truth about almost a year after I escaped him, and she still feels bad for not taking me seriously. No one knew what was going on behind closed doors, but makes sense. I was his biggest PR team. Only 2 hours passed since saying I do's. He was throwing me out of his truck in my parents' driveway, cussing and yelling at me that he wanted a divorce. And then recklessly drives off. So much for that honeymoon phase on our actual honeymoon. I ran inside and my dad came out of the bathroom and he couldn't understand a word I was saying, but he was trying to basically try to ask me what was happening. And I said as clear as I could because I was sobbing uncontrollably. He left me. How could he? On our honeymoon. My dad was pissed, but then he relaxed and tried to rationalize the situation, like maybe he forgot something, pulling a bad joke, or something like that. Then we see his truck flying in our driveway and my dad smiles and says, "See, he's right there." I wiped my tears and walked out of the door and told them yes, it was a prank. Instead, I was screaming. I was embarrassed for myself because now I look crazy, but if I wanted to save this relationship, they could never know the truth. Months go by and he starts being sweeter ever since we had to be long distance because he was in the military at training. But soon I will be packing up my life and moving to Texas to be with him. I could tell my parents were starting to see the cracks that I had worked so hard to glue together. My mom even picked up my phone on the table, mistaking it for hers, and saw the huge message from my ex and just started crying, begging me to stay because he was not a good person. But I assured her that this was way out of character for him, which was a lie, and that he was just lonely. I knew she didn't believe me, but she also knew that I was stubborn and I was going to do whatever regardless of her concern. After just a few weeks in Texas, I knew my life was in danger. It was Thanksgiving Day, and my family just called to check up on us and just tell us Happy Thanksgiving, and in a moment, I hung up. The man I thought was my soulmate started cussing at me and saying that I need to stop talking to my family because he was my family now. I let out a little chuckle thinking he's got to be joking, and he picks up our wedding glasses I specifically had made for us, and he directly throws them at me, shattering them around me. Shocked, I didn't even know what to do. So I just walked over to the broom and started sweeping up the broken glass. You may be listening to this right now and thinking surely he would be done throwing a tantrum by now, but no. He then throws pictured frames at me while I'm sweeping up the glass. Honestly, that broken glass on the wood floor was just a metaphor for any love that I had left towards this man. I broke that night. I stopped seeing him as my better half and more of the monster that I'm now stuck with. I became very depressed and he loved that. He would break me down over and over again just to get a reaction. 2 months go by, and one night he completely lost his shit over the washer and dryer, people messing up the days that they were supposed to come out, and he started pacing back and forth, mumbling words I couldn't quite make out, but demanded that I call and fix it. He grabbed me and sat me down on the couch, telling me what to say and that I better not screw it up, like a damn negotiation. This man was so paranoid, making comments that they were doing it because he was a soldier. Then he started to blame me, even though I wasn't even around him when he first called in the first place. But still yelled at me for hours until it snapped. He walked into the bedroom. Me? I'm still on the couch trying to process what the hell just happened. You're so freaking stupid. This is your fault. Did you plan this with the workers just to make me look dumb? Or are you just freaking dumb? Huh? You freaking bitch. Yeah, that's what I thought, you freaking no good, ungrateful bitch. You know what? I'm done. You don't do anything but except complain and bitch at me, blaming me for everything. All you do is cuss and yell at me for no damn reason. He then looked at me with this look that I've heard other victims try and describe, and the best I can describe it is a darkness in his eyes, like an emptiness that still causes me nightmares to this day. Without hesitation, he lunges at me in the middle of the day with the curtains wide open, door open, neighbors out and about. He throws me up against the wall and starts choking me. I slowly start to see black, but then he lets go only for a second because then he slams my entire body onto the floor. At the moment, I either blacked out or my brain was trying to shield me from what was happening. But piece by piece, I would come to, and he was holding me by the shoulders and just repeatedly slamming me to the floor. My screams were ignored by the people outside. I plead for everyone to call the police and repeatedly yelling for help over and over again. My fight or flight takes over and chooses flight. I ran to the main bathroom and locked the door, frantically calling my mom because in that moment I just wanted to hear her voice, unsure if that would be my last. But my poor mom didn't know the nightmare of the phone call until it was too late. She was with my sister and dad, and she put me on speakerphone because we would usually do this so they all can talk to me like we were all there together. But instead, they heard me screaming for my life and heard my ex calling me awful names and telling me to get my ass in there to unlock the door. They were all confused and my dad was ready to come and unalive this asshole himself. But then silence. No more banging, just me softly crying and just try to calm my mother over the phone that I'm alright and that I need to leave him. But I had to do it in the safest way possible because if he catches me, I may not make it out with my life. When I walk out of the room, my ex is just sitting there with a blank stare like nothing had happened. This was a theme throughout our 3-year relationship, but I could no longer ignore the escalation of his behavior. So, one night I put my escape plan in action. I was going to make a run for it. It was like 2 a.m. Keys to my Pontiac were on the kitchen table, and he was asleep in the bedroom that I wasn't allowed in for several days earlier. I bust out of the guest bedroom that was my prison and beelined out for the front door quietly but as quickly as possible. It was 9.5 hours to my home state. I only stopped once in Dallas to fill up on gas. With every mile in the rearview mirror, I felt something inside that reassured me. I'm free now. Forever scarred, but most have healed and faded. I 100% believe, had I stayed, I'd be 6 feet deep. So to my abusive ex-husband that I fled from that late February night, I hope we never meet again. Ever. Good evening, everyone. This is Yuri K, and this is the end of the video. Please leave a comment and let us know your opinions on the matter. If you happen to like this content, please check out our other videos. Make sure you like and share amongst your friends and family to help our community grow. You happen to be new to this channel? Please make sure you subscribe. It's free and you can always change it in the future. You have some terrifying story suggestions? If so, make sure that you send it to my email, fearofthedarkstories@gmail.com, and I'll feature it in a future segment. But you guys stay safe out there, and remember to always be afraid of the dark.